Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S7 and see how this particular phone holds up in 2024. Now, spoiler alert, I probably would not recommend buying the Samsung Galaxy S7 anymore, and I definitely would tell you if you're an average person out there, I would not recommend buying this particular phone. It is a significantly older phone than a lot of other devices, and you are so much better off buying a phone that is still either 1, supported with software, or 2, going to be supported with software for a period of time longer than this one, because it really doesn't make too much sense to actually go ahead and pick up this type of device if I'm being completely honest with you. So from that perspective right there, just kind of keep that in mind. But if you do want to pick up some phones that I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there, and you can also support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the Samsung Galaxy S7, this particular phone on the front has a 5.1-inch Super AMOLED display. It's 1440p, and it's honestly not that bad of a panel. It has a bunch of bezel around it. We'll get into that in a second. The brightness isn't that high, and it's a 60 Hz panel. But I will tell you, for it being as old as it is quite surprising how good of a job Samsung did at this time, because it really isn't that bad of a performing, panel. I think if you're going to go through and actually use this phone on an everyday, period, whatever, it's actually kind of surprising how decent of a display this thing was. I remember back in 2000 and, whenever this phone came out, 2016, I remember when this phone came out and I was using it, and I was actually pretty shocked by how good of a job this panel was doing at that time. But I will tell you, in my opinion, this is a very, very decent panel for the age of this phone. Now, you are getting the top bezel and the bottom bezel with the home button, which is kind of annoying. It is definitely more of an outdated design. And it's also funny because the Samsung Galaxy S8 that came out right after this looked significantly better than this thing, in every single way. So that right there is kind of another kind of funny thing that came out, within this particular device too. But I will tell you without a doubt, very, very good device. I like the way this phone looks and everything, and the home button and everything, definitely gets a thumbs up for me. It's an older button, it's an older design for the most part, but 2016, this was still when the iPhone 7s came out and iPhone, 7 Plus, so definitely had an older design anyway. On the bottom, you were getting a micro USB port and a headphone jack, and a micro SD card slot. So this was the last Samsung phone, I would say, for their major S series to have that micro USB port. Right after this, they switched over to USB Type-C. So it would have probably been nice if we had USB Type-C, if I'm being honest. But still, it's totally okay. USB-C, iPhones just got USB-C 6 months ago. So totally get it. It's totally fine in my opinion. With the Galaxy S7 though, the micro SD card slot is a very nice touch. I love having the micro SD card slot. And once again, that's kind of what you're getting on this particular device, which is genuinely actually very cool. On the backside, you are getting that standard glass back, which again looks and feels very good. I love having the standard glass back, and it looks very good. I don't, again, have too much to complain about there from that particular perspective. You're also getting that single camera setup on the top as well. So this is another pretty cool thing. You can easily just go ahead and, take photos and stuff. We'll get into that in a second as well. You are still maintaining things like wireless charging. You still have a pretty good, well-built phone. It feels fairly premium for the most part. Definitely does not feel cheap. Again, I don't think Samsung's ever made a very cheap or inexpensive feeling phone. As I said before, I think if you're going to go through and actually buy some sort of device, the Samsung Galaxy S7 gives off the impression that it still is a fairly expensive feeling phone. But like I said, I would not recommend buying this phone because it is already somewhat of an older, cheaper phone. So just kind of keep that in mind. The price tag of this phone also has gone down so much. These phones are probably available for $30 something, or maybe $50 for the most part. Not that expensive, and they're fairly cheap when it comes down to it as well. So that right there is another big thing. If you're going to run through and actually buy some sort of device, you are basically going to be getting a better feeling phone and a better feeling device for the most part, and something like the Samsung Galaxy, any of the newer ones rather than this one. So I just kind of wanted to get that out of the way as well. But beyond that, it's still a decent performing phone on the outside. In terms of the camera, you are still getting a very interesting type of camera on this particular phone. So on the front, it has a 12 megapixel wide-angle lens, and on the front, it has a 5 megapixel wide-angle lens. So, you can do 4K at 30 on the back, 1440p on the front, and for the most part, it really isn't that terrible of a camera here. And that's something that's actually pretty interesting here, because it is a fairly basic type of, camera, if I can kind of sum it up like that. It is, it doesn't cost that much money here. So it doesn't cost that much money to, buy. And I would tell you for the most part, for a cost per basis for this type of camera, it really isn't that terrible. And I will say Samsung phones tend to perform fairly well over a longer period of time than a lot of other competition. But the problem is sometimes in those social media applications, they don't really perform that well. But I will tell you, in my personal opinion, with something like the Samsung Galaxy S7, it really isn't a terrible camera, but it is a fairly outdated camera when it comes down to it nowadays. So the big things to keep in mind with this particular phone is that one, it is somewhat outdated. That's kind of the problem that you're getting with this particular phone. Like, you're getting a single lens, you're not getting a multiple camera setups. There's no 4K 60 on the front or the back of this particular phone. So that's kind of another thing going on here as well. But I will tell you, for the age of this phone, like, it's not that bad if I'm being honest, but definitely you are getting not that great of a camera, on this particular phone when it comes down to it, which kind of makes sense. That's kind of what happens when you're getting this type of device. So once again, I would much rather recommend like buying a device that is still, having a pretty decent camera that's still kind of supported. This thing's not really supported, to be honest. And also it's not really that great of a camera. So you're like kind of stuck where it's not really that good of a device for the most part. So that kind of covers it up there as well. Now, in terms of the software longevity, this is probably, again, one of the worst parts about this phone. This phone really isn't like supported with software anymore. So that again is kind of the problem that you're getting with this particular device, because when you are getting this particular phone, like you're not really getting you're not really getting a device that's still supported or really giving you anything with this particular device. And once again, that's kind of a problem, because like I doubt you want to go ahead and buy a phone that is going to be like either unsupported with software when you buy it, or it's not going to be that great of a device. And that is essentially what's going on with this particular phone. And I think, again, what I'm looking for within a device, it's a device that's still supported with software. That's like number one. And number two, it's like a device that's good in performance. This phone really isn't giving you any of those things anymore. And that's just kind of what's happening with this, within this particular device right now. So from that perspective, to be honest, that kind of covers it up there as well. Now, in terms of the performance side of things, this phone is basically giving you that Snapdragon. This phone is giving you, I guess, that Exynos 8890 octa chipset with 4 gigabytes of RAM. The thing I will tell you about this phone's performance is that, I don't even know how to break this down. Like, it is an outdated phone. That's a given, right? It's an outdated phone. That's exactly what's going on here. But also, it is a fairly outdated device already. So the performance isn't that great. This thing's stuck on like Android like 7 or something like that. So even that's like already outdated. You're also not getting that great of a performance here. I mean, 4 gigs of RAM really isn't that much. We're like at 8 now for like the base models of all phones, and 4 definitely is pushing it. And the 60 hertz refresh rate, like it definitely isn't that good of a performing phone. Even if you were on a budget, there's no point of buying this phone, because there are so much better off like budget phones that you can buy for even less than $100 that are significantly better than this thing. I think like a cracked Samsung Galaxy S20 that has like a cracked back and like maybe like a cracked screen here and there is like a better deal than the Samsung Galaxy S7 brand new and fully functional condition. Like, that's kind of how I feel about this particular phone right now. So that right there is like another, thing to keep in mind as well. So I will definitely tell you, with the Samsung Galaxy S7, there really isn't a big reason why I would recommend any single person to go ahead and buy this phone. It doesn't make that much sense, and you are so much better off purchasing a device that is still supported with software, that still has some feature sets going for it, that is a better phone than this thing. It doesn't make any sense to go ahead and buy a phone like this. You are much better off purchasing a device that is still supported with software that still has some decent performance inside of it. This device is not giving it to you. And I would hate to recommend a phone to people if it's not giving you that great of a performance when it comes down to it. So from that perspective, that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.